You open Instagram for 30 seconds and somehow feel worse about your entire life. You weren't even sad before you opened it. Now you're questioning your career, your body, your relationship, and whether you've quietly wasted the last 3 years. Here's what's weird. You know the comparison is irrational. You know their life isn't actually like that. You know this, and you still can't stop. Turns out it's not weakness. Your brain is running software that was never designed for any of this. And before this gets better, it's going to get considerably darker. Go back about 150,000 years. Your ancestors weren't scrolling feeds. They were living in small tribes of 50 to 150 people. That was their entire world. Everyone they would ever know, in one group, around one fire. And in that world, comparison wasn't a bad habit. It was survival. If the person next to you had more food, more status, more allies, you needed to know. Because falling behind in the tribe meant losing resources. And losing resources meant dying. So your brain learned to track social rank the way your lungs learn to breathe. Automatically, constantly, without asking you first. Think of it like a background app you never opened but can never close. It's running right now. It was running while you were asleep. The problem is that same app is now trying to process the curated highlight reels of 7 billion strangers. It wasn't built for that scale. Not even close. Leon Festinger named this social comparison theory in 1954. The idea that humans have an automatic, deep-seated drive to evaluate themselves against others. He thought it was about accuracy, finding out where you genuinely stand. What he didn't predict was what happens when you hand that drive a feed with no bottom. But before we get into that, you need to understand the 2 directions your brain compares, and one of them is going to make you uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't compare randomly, it has 2 modes, and they mess with you in completely different ways. Upward comparison is when you're measuring yourself against someone doing better, more successful, further along, seemingly more together. Your brain registers this as a threat, the same circuits that fire when you spot a predator. Stress hormones spike. You feel behind. You feel like your trajectory is subtly, permanently wrong. A small dose of this can push you forward, the way real competition makes athletes perform better. But when it's chronic, when it's every day, when it's 30-second scroll sessions before you've even eaten breakfast, it tips into something that looks a lot more like depression. Wait. It gets worse. Downward comparison is when you're measuring yourself against someone worse off. And this one feels good. Your brain gets a small hit of relief. Temporarily, things feel fine. Nobody wants to admit that. But your brain is doing it every time you read about someone's life falling apart and feel that quiet, slightly guilty sense of, okay, mine isn't that bad. The relief fades. The habit of looking for it doesn't. And this is running underneath every scroll session, every LinkedIn visit, every time you check what someone from high school is doing now. For 150,000 years, you compared yourself to people whose actual daily lives you could see. People who also had bad weeks, cluttered apartments, and jobs that didn't feel like enough. Then, social media compressed your reference group from 50 real people into 50 million curated ones. Every platform surfaces peak moments, the vacation with improbable lighting, the launch, the engagement, the promotion. No one posts the Tuesday at 2 p.m. where they're staring at a wall, quietly wondering if they've made every decision wrong. Your brain doesn't know that. It pattern matches the feed against your real life, against the ordinary Wednesday, against the weeks that were fine but not impressive by any definition. The comparison was always going to be rigged. The accounts that look the most effortlessly put together are usually the ones being managed the most aggressively, because those people feel the comparison pressure too. Everyone is measuring themselves against a performance, and everyone, including the person performing, is losing. But here's what that's actually doing inside your head. Your brain processes social rejection the same way it processes physical pain. Not metaphorically. The same neural circuitry, the same regions. An fMRI scanner shown images of social exclusion lights up the same areas as one shown images of physical injury. Your brain literally treats inferiority as injury. When you feel behind someone, your nervous system reads it as a threat to your standing in the group. And in the wiring that's still running underneath everything, losing your standing was the last thing that happened before you died alone. So your nervous system responds accordingly. Stress hormones, hypervigilance, a persistent background sense that something needs to be fixed. This is why a stranger's LinkedIn update can ruin your afternoon. Your brain isn't overreacting. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. The context changed. The hardware didn't. Researchers call the long-term result of this contingent self-worth. Your sense of being okay stops being something you have. It becomes something you check against other people every single day. Your mood isn't determined by your life. It's determined by who showed up in your feed this morning. So what do you do with that? Here's the honest answer. Knowing the mechanism doesn't turn the loop off. Your brain doesn't care that you've read the research. It will still run the comparison. But awareness changes one thing. It creates a gap. 1 second between the trigger and the spiral where you're watching it happen instead of being inside it. The hard part is that gap is uncomfortable. Watching your brain run the comparison without feeding it feels like trying to not scratch an itch. Your nervous system wants the loop to close. It wants you to check, to measure, to resolve the uncertainty. That discomfort is actually the signal the mechanism is working, not proof you're broken. What research does support is shifting the comparison axis. Instead of measuring yourself against someone else's peak moment, measure yourself against who you were 12 months ago. Your brain has real data for that. The feedback is honest, and the loop actually closes. You didn't develop a flaw. You inherited a threat detection system designed for a world that no longer exists. The question is whether you let it run on autopilot or whether you decide what it actually gets to compare. So now you know why the loop starts, why your brain literally processes being left behind as physical pain, and what contingent self-worth is costing you every time you open your phone in the morning.